Bryce Young was the number one pick for the Carolina Panthers in the 2023 NFL Draft and was expected to play good and to show flashes as a rookie and be a franchise cornerstone. But as we know, not every number one pick is drafted into a good situation, and Bryce was no exception. He was, in a lot of ways, set up to fail in his rookie year, and the play on the field showed exactly that. And in today's video, we're going to break down why Bryce Young did not stand a chance during his rookie year, and why he was set up to fail. Bryce certainly made his fair share of rookie mistakes, and there's no denying that. And in today's video, we're going to break down the good, the bad, and the ugly from Bryce Young's rookie year. We're also going to discuss what we can expect moving forward, and if, in fact, his career is salvageable just a little over a year after being drafted number one overall. There is a lot of tape to dive into from Bryce's rookie year, and without further ado, let's begin. One of the more frustrating games for the Panthers and ultimately Bryce Young was the Saints game in Week 2 on Monday night. This was a game Carolina could have easily won, and the frustration started from the very first play. The Panthers are running a levels concept with posts from each of the receivers, and the goal is to stretch the Saints defense horizontally, that way somebody will come open. But as you can see, the Saints do a really good job of covering this, and when somebody should be open, nobody is. And I tweeted this picture a few weeks ago, but the center ended up on his rump, and the right guard was quite literally in no man's land, and the only option at this point was to throw the ball to Miles Sanders, who helped the center with the chip, and there was really nowhere for Bryce to go. So instead of taking a sack, Bryce just threw the ball over Miles' head and lived to see another down. Now, after a few first downs, the Panthers were in New Orleans territory looking to score. Carolina draws up a concept where the goal is to have the number one receiver carry the corner vertically, and therefore create space for the wide receiver underneath. And it works. As you can see, the corner's hips flip in the direction of where the number one receiver is going, but the problem is, and this was a common problem on tape, is Bryce doesn't have enough time to get this ball away. Cam Jordan disrupts this play and forces Bryce out of the pocket, and this technically went on the stat sheet as a sack for Marcus May, and whether it was Cam coming from the right side, or even the left guard Chandler Zavala getting beat, there's nowhere to go for Bryce at this point. Technically, Adam Thielen gets open well after Bryce gets out of the pocket, but I don't really blame Bryce for lofting a ball on the run into the middle of the field. There's not many guys in the league that would attempt that, and there's far more bad that will come out of that play than good more often than not. Now, on the previous play where protection wasn't great, you can very easily make the argument that this is not a 5th round developmental pick we're talking about, and that we in fact are talking about the number one overall pick, and basically, tough luck buddy, figure it out when there's a muddy pocket. And I completely understand that train of thought, but you know who else was an undersized quarterback who was nowhere close to as mobile as Bryce can be at times? Even though Bryce obviously isn't Lamar Jackson, he can get out of trouble a lot more than a prime Drew Brees could. Now, it's not fair to say Bryce should be the next Drew Brees strictly based on size, but the point is, Drew in his prime would not have fared well in this offense last year because there was so much negativity around Bryce in his rookie year. And by the way, the next play was 2nd and 15, and this was a big miss on Bryce's part. With Jonathan Mingo in between zones of the drop 8 New Orleans is running, Bryce has to rip this football up the seam. This is NFL Open, and for whatever reason, he doesn't. Sure, you can say Cam Jordan was right there as Bryce was getting ready to wind up, but this play is on Bryce. There's not going to be many 2nd and 15s or 10 plus yards to the sticks where you have a receiver this open between zones in the NFL, and the reality is you have to hit him. You have to have the anticipation once you see the linebacker is staying put and not trailing behind. Bryce eventually got out of the pocket and threw the ball away and faced a 3rd and 15 from the New Orleans 44-yard line, and with the Saints' alignment before the snap being about as off coverage as you can get, really outside of a Hail Mary, they basically said we are fine with giving up 5 or 6 yards here and forcing Carolina into a long field goal, which Eddie Pinheiro eventually converted to make it a 3-0 game. The next drive started off bad as Hayden Hurst committed a holding penalty despite really not being anywhere near the play, and put the Panthers at 1st and 20 on their own 15, and from there you're really doing damage control, as that's more often than not a drive-altering penalty, and it was, as the Panthers' next two plays were gains of 6 and 7 yards to set up a 3rd and 6 in which the Saints called a cover 1, and there's not a lot of separation anywhere on the screen as Hayden Hurst gets chipped out of the play. Jonathan Mingo creates no separation on the dig, and a 33-year-old Adam Thielen doesn't create a whole lot of separation on the out route, and Bryce also underthrows this ball. I don't think this was a matter of Bryce not being able to make this specific throw from far hash as much as he flat out underthrew it. These first two drives summarized a lot of Panthers games in 2023 in terms of game flow and how the Panthers games would go. Get behind the sticks, and then in the year 2023, with a poor offensive line and poor receiving core, ask Bryce to make chicken salad out of chicken feces and be set up for failure before the play, or even game for that matter, starts. The Dallas game specifically was bad as he was sacked 7 times, and when you're sacked 7 times and throw a pick 6 in the same game, that's what you need to know about how the game went. Not surprisingly, the Panthers lost this game, and by double digits at that, but the Dallas game in particular was a culmination of everything that went wrong during Bryce's rookie year. Bryce had 37 dropbacks in this game, with 29 of those being pass attempts, 7 being sacks, and 1 being a rushing attempt on the very first play of the game, and the first play of the game for Carolina showed how this game was going to play out. Carolina is running a quick passing concept as they obviously knew entering the game how fierce Dallas's pass rush was, and Bryce still did not have a chance. Osa Odigizua is playing 3-tech and performs a very nice ghost move before Austin Corbett can even get a hand on him, which forces Bryce to step up into the pocket. Bryce then gets into a foot race with Micah Parsons, and it's a miracle he gained 4 yards from this play to begin with. The Panthers were hopelessly outmatched in the trenches for this entire game, and one play that I think shows this best is on a sack Micah Parsons got later in the drive. Micah is on a 4th-round rookie in Chandler Zavala, and it's never an ideal situation to be one-on-one with Micah, let alone as a 4th-round rookie guard. Micah basically Euro-steps him into a swim move and is left one-on-one with Bryce Young, and it does not take a genius to figure out who won this one. This was how the Cowboys game went, and it was a miracle Carolina didn't lose this game by 35. They were hopelessly outmatched across the board, and were especially outmatched once Dallas got up by double digits and could pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, which they did just 4 minutes into the second quarter. The big thing moving forward with Bryce Young is the worst of it's over. At least you hope the worst is over, because I truly cannot imagine it getting worse than last year. There were games where Bryce didn't stand a chance, and Dallas was of course a big one, and so was Jacksonville near the end of the year. Carolina had 5 drives in the first half, and Bryce was sacked on 4 of those drives. The Panthers were shut out in this game, and in fact they were actually shut out in their final 2 games to end their 2023 season, which was very fitting for how their year went. Perhaps the best play from the Jags game, it would also summarize their season, was having Josh Allen, yes, the same Josh Allen who just had 17.5 sacks and made his second Pro Bowl, was left unblocked and Bryce was hung out to dry. This was on a 3rd down with 2 minutes left in the first half, and it was only a 9-0 game at this point, so the Panthers were very much still alive. There's a couple of things that frustrate me with the perspective around Bryce Young as we enter year 2. And the first, of course, is that he's broken beyond repair and that the damage is already done. And when we break that down and we think about that out loud, I simply ask this question. When you look at the situation Bryce Young had last year, specifically with the offensive line woes and specifically with the poor receiving play, as his number 1 receiver was a 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who at times turned the clock back a bit, but more often than not was in fact a 33-year-old receiver who's 10 years into his career. Now, again, when you break that down and when you think about it, how many quarterbacks are succeeding in that situation? How many quarterbacks are taking the 2023 Panthers to 11 or 12 wins and are competing in the divisional round of the playoffs and are competing in the NFC Championship game, let alone an undersized quarterback who was drafted number 1 overall? And the other thing that frustrates me with the Bryce Young narrative entering year 2 is the whole undersized part. Now, Bryce is undersized. He's 5'10", 200 pounds, and that is a lot smaller than, well, really every other NFL quarterback. And I get it, but it's this whole, he's not going to be able to survive and be able to play in the NFL, and I don't understand where this comes from. Did we not just watch the same 2023 season Bryce Young just had? He was sacked 62 times last year in 16 games. He missed a single game, which was in week 3 against the Seahawks, and took beating after beating, as we've shown throughout this video, where there were plays where he didn't stand a chance, yet he took it like a man, kept going, and was able to continue not just for the next couple of plays, but for the remainder of the game. So this whole Bryce Young's not going to be able to survive thing really frustrates me, because he just had one of the worst seasons a quarterback could have from a pass blocking perspective, and not only survived, but played 16 of 17 games. And how do the Panthers address that this offseason? They spent $150 million on the interior part of their offensive line to ensure Bryce Young doesn't get the kicked out of him for the second straight year. Now, if Bryce were to sustain a very serious injury, whether it was a season ending, whether it was 9 to 12 weeks or whatever, if a body part snaps or a leg goes a different direction or whatever, you really can't control that. But this whole Bryce isn't tough and he's not going to be able to survive is something I could not disagree with more. He took a beating in year 1 and was sacked the second most times behind only the Commanders or former Commanders quarterback Sam Howell. And with the improvements the Panthers made this offseason, I think Bryce will be just fine in 2024 and beyond. Bryce's best game of his rookie year by far was against Green Bay, and in that game he threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Panthers put up 30 points. He was only sacked twice, which was tied for second fewest in his entire rookie year, and there were good flashes in this game. I know it's easy to say this was against a Joe Barry defense and that Joe is gone now for a reason, but if you think there is any hope for Bryce moving forward, this is the game to sell yourself on. The first play we'll break down was a 3rd and 7 on a drive the Panthers would score, and from the pre-snap alignment, you can tell the Packers are in zone coverage. Bryce, of course, knows this, and the Packers run a stunt to free up first-round pick Lucas Van Ness. Rashawn Gary does a good job taking 2-on-1, and you can even see Rashawn underhook the right guard's right arm, and by doing that, there's no way he can get back inside, because he has a 280-pound man holding him back from getting inside to block Lucas Van Ness. Lucas has a free shot at Bryce, and while under pressure, Bryce delivers a dime to DJ Chark for a gain of 19 yards. Why I like this play so much is because Bryce knew he was going to take a shot, and he did, and he still delivered this ball under pressure for a big gain on 3rd down. A few plays later on 3rd and 5, Carolina is running a bounce concept, and Adam Thielen subtly pushes Eric Stokes away to create separation, and with the underneath route doubled, Bryce hits Adam in stride for a gain of 17. The big thing for Bryce in year 2 is getting into a rhythm early and often and not being set up for complete failure like he was in his rookie year. The reality was for Bryce, or for anybody that quarterbacked the 2023 Panthers, was they were going to be set up for failure and they were not going to be close to maximizing what they could do. I thought the Panthers made a really good decision to hire head coach Dave Canales this offseason, and with the success Baker Mayfield had in 2023, I think we will start to see the type of player Bryce can be moving forward. The Panthers had to get the interior offensive line taken care of, and that was non-negotiable with a 5'10" starting quarterback, and they did by bringing in Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. Now, there are things Bryce himself will have to work on next year, as he himself was not close to being a good NFL quarterback during his rookie season. While I don't think Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, and Xavier Legette is going to be the best trio in the league, I like this trio a lot under Canales because he can specifically use each player in different roles in his offense. Deontay and Adam can be the guys using the slot to create separation when it comes hell or high water, and Xavier Legette, early on at least, can be used as either a gadget-type player where you manufacture his touches, or even a go-ball player where you throw it up and let him go make a play. I also really like the selections of running backs Jonathan Brooks and Jatavian Sanders in the 2nd and 4th rounds, and while I don't think Bryce is going to be a 4,500-yard passer, 30-touchdown player this year, I think he will be serviceable in that he can be a solid NFL quarterback. The play specifically against the Packers where he knew he was going to take a hit and still delivered a 19-yard pass to DJ Chark is the type of play you want to hang your hat on moving forward, because that's who Bryce was at Alabama. He was a precision passer who had, and still has, a high football IQ, and that's who he can be in the NFL. He's not going to make the Mahomes diving throw in the Super Bowl, or a Josh Allen throw falling out of bounds, but with a better situation around him this year and with a year of hell behind him, I truly think Bryce Young will be fine moving forward. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 35% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.